The awakening. The darkness of deep space was absolute, broken only by the faint glow of a distant nebula. Inside the massive generation ship Prometheus, diagnostic lights flickered to life for the first time in over 2 centuries. Captain Ilara Jensen's cryopod hissed as it opened, releasing a thin cloud of vapor into the recycled air. Her eyes fluttered open, adjusting to the dim blue emergency lighting that bathed the chamber. "Status report," she croaked, her voice raw from centuries of disuse. The ship's AI responded immediately, its voice calm and measured despite the gravity of the situation. "Welcome back, Captain Jensen. Date is August 17, 2783. The reclamation protocol has reached Phase 1 activation parameters. Fleet status: operational. Crew revival commencing." Ilara sat up slowly, muscles protesting after their long dormancy. Around her, other pods were beginning to activate, her command staff emerging from their extended slumber. She knew exactly what the reclamation protocol meant. The time had come. Humanity was going home. 250 years ago, Earth had fallen. The Vorathi Dominion, a militaristic empire spanning dozens of star systems, had systematically dismantled human defenses, bombarded major cities, and claimed the Sol system as their own. The survivors, barely 12 million humans, had fled in hastily constructed arcs, scattering across the stars in a desperate bid for survival. But they hadn't just run away. They had a plan. "Show me current scans of the Sol system," Ilara ordered as she slipped into her uniform, the smart fabric adjusting to her frame as if it had been tailored just moments ago, rather than centuries prior. A holographic display materialized before her, showing Earth, still blue and green, but now surrounded by orbital installations bearing the distinctive curved architecture of Vorathi construction. A blockade of warships hovered in strategic positions throughout the system. "They'd fortified well," observed Commander Kai Takeda, her second-in-command, as he joined her at the display. 15 defensive platforms around Earth alone, and what looks like a substantial fleet at the Lagrange points. Ilara nodded grimly. "They think they own our home. Time to disabuse them of that notion." She turned to face the gathering officers, now 20 strong and growing as more emerged from cryo. "The reclamation protocol enters its final phase today. For 2.5 centuries, our automated factories have been building, our AI networks have been learning, our scattered people have been preparing." The ship shuddered slightly as it decelerated, approaching the outer boundary of a star system 8 light-years from Sol, close enough for a rapid strike, far enough to remain undetected. "Show me the fleet," Ilara commanded. The hologram shifted, displaying the vast armada that had assembled in secret. 800 warships, each built in automated shipyards hidden throughout nearby star systems. For centuries, while the remnants of humanity appeared to be merely surviving in scattered colonies, the reclamation protocol had been quietly preparing the most formidable fighting force the galaxy had ever seen. "Vorathi patrol detected at the edge of the system," reported Lieutenant Harper from the sensor station. "They're moving to investigate." Ilara smiled thinly. "Perfect. Let's introduce ourselves." The Prometheus emerged from the shadow of a gas giant, its massive form gleaming in the light of the system's sun. At nearly 12 kilometers long, it dwarfed even the largest Vorathi dreadnoughts. Behind it came the fleet, ship after ship dropping out of FTL in a precisely choreographed sequence that spread them across a front 3 light-minutes wide. The Vorathi response was immediate. Alarm signals blasted across subspace frequencies as their patrol craft scrambled to form a defensive line. Larger warships began to break orbit from various positions in the system, converging on the unexpected threat. "They're hailing us," Harper announced. "Standard Dominion greeting protocols." "Put them through," Ilara ordered, straightening her uniform and facing the central display. The image of a Vorathi commander appeared, reptilian features set in an expression of wary hostility. Their scaled skin shimmered with iridescent patterns that indicated high rank within their hierarchy. "Unidentified vessels, you have entered Dominion space," Identify yourselves immediately and prepare to be boarded for inspection." Ilara stepped forward, her posture radiating authority. "This is Captain Ilara Jensen of the Earth Fleet ship Prometheus. You are trespassing in human territory. We have returned to reclaim what is ours." The Vorathi commander's face contorted in what might have been surprise or amusement. Their vocal sacs inflated slightly, a sign of agitation among their species. "Humans, your species was subjugated centuries ago. Your claim is invalid." "We were never subjugated," Ilara replied evenly. "We were momentarily inconvenienced, and now we're back." Before the Vorathi could respond, Ilara cut the transmission with a slashing gesture. "Battle stations. Deploy the Aegis systems." Throughout the fleet, weapon systems came online, technology that had been developed in secret over centuries. The Aegis system was humanity's ace, a quantum-entangled targeting and countermeasure network that could predict and neutralize enemy actions before they were fully executed, developed from theoretical physics that had barely been in its infancy when Earth fell. The first Vorathi salvos came quickly, energy weapons and kinetic projectiles streaking across space toward the human fleet. The Aegis system responded instantaneously, deploying point defense measures with uncanny precision. Not a single shot reached its target. "Return fire," Ilara ordered calmly. "Tactical pattern Delta. Let's show them what humanity has learned while we've been away." The human fleet surged forward, weapons blazing. Particle lances sliced through Vorathi shields as if they were paper. Graviton torpedoes warped spacetime around enemy vessels, crushing them from all directions simultaneously. The Prometheus itself unleashed a barrage that annihilated an entire squadron of Vorathi destroyers in seconds. "Captain," Commander Takeda reported, his voice tight with controlled excitement, "the Vorathi defense grid is falling back. They're calling for reinforcements from deeper in the system." Ilara nodded. "This was expected. Commence Phase 2. Deploy the Phantoms." From the belly of the Prometheus and several other capital ships, smaller vessels emerge, stealth craft equipped with phase shift technology that rendered them virtually undetectable. Their mission was to infiltrate deeper into Vorathi territory and disable key communication relays, preventing them from calling reinforcements from other systems. The battle intensified as the main Vorathi fleet engaged. Their ships were formidable, the product of a species that had conquered a significant portion of the galaxy through military might. But they faced something unprecedented. A human force that had spent 2.5 centuries preparing specifically to defeat them. "Incoming transmission," Harper announced suddenly. It's from a planetary settlement in this system." Ilara's heart skipped a beat. "Put it through. Maximum security protocols." A human face appeared on screen, weathered, determined, bearing the marks of hardship. "This is Elena Reyes, leader of the New Darwin Colony Resistance. We've detected your fleet. If you're really human, we've been waiting for you." Ilara felt a surge of emotion she hadn't expected. There were still humans in this system, survivors who had hidden, endured, and maintained hope for generation after generation. "Ms. Reyes, this is Captain Jensen of the Reclamation Fleet. The waiting is over. We're coming home." Across the system, the battle raged on. Human ships moved with devastating coordination, the Aegis system anticipating and countering every Vorathi tactic. Phantom ships systematically disabled communication relays, isolating the system from the wider Dominion. And on the surface of New Darwin, dormant resistance cells activated, targeting key Vorathi installations with carefully planned strikes. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Ilara watched as the tactical display showed human forces pushing steadily through the system. The first phase of the reclamation was proceeding even better than their most optimistic projections. "The Vorathi are changing tactics," Takeda observed, studying the movement patterns of the enemy fleet. "They're falling back to defensive positions around the inner planets." "They're adapting," Ilara acknowledged, "but not quickly enough. Direct the 3rd and 5th battle groups to flank their position. Had the Phantoms target their command vessels specifically. As the orders were relayed, Lieutenant Harper looked up from her console with wide eyes. "Captain, we're detecting multiple FTL signatures at the edge of the system. Large vessels, but they're not Vorathi configurations." Ilara frowned. "Unknown alien vessels? Put them on screen." The holographic display shifted to show a group of ships emerging from FTL. Elegant, asymmetrical designs unlike the functional brutalism of Vorathi architecture. "They're hailing us," Harper reported. "Open a channel." The view screen filled with the image of a being Ilara didn't recognize, humanoid but clearly alien, with luminescent skin and eyes that appeared to contain shifting galaxies of their own. "Greetings, warriors of Earth," the being spoke, their voice melodious and layered with harmonics. "I am Emissary Talis of the Nelvari Collective. We have observed your resistance against the Dominion with great interest." Ilara straightened, maintaining her composure despite her surprise. "This is Captain Jensen of the Earth Reclamation Fleet. What is your purpose here, emissary?" The alien's expression shifted in a way that might have been a smile. "For too long, the Vorathi have subjugated species across this sector. We have been waiting for someone to challenge them effectively." The being made a gesture, and the tactical display updated to show the Nelvari ships moving to flank the Vorathi forces from another direction. "Perhaps it is time for an alliance." Ilara exchanged glances with Takeda. This was an unexpected development, but potentially a fortunate one. "We would welcome your assistance, emissary, but understand that our mission is non-negotiable. We are taking back what belongs to humanity." "As you should," Talis responded. "And perhaps together, we can ensure the Vorathi never threaten either of our peoples again." As the Nelvari ships joined the battle, turning the tide even more decisively in humanity's favor, Ilara allowed herself a moment of reflection. 250 years of planning, building, and waiting were coming to fruition. The scattered remnants of a nearly extinguished species had refused to fade into extinction. Instead, they had transformed their defeat into the foundation for an astonishing return. The Vorathi were about to learn a lesson that would echo across the galaxy. Humanity was back, and nothing would stop them again. The counter-offensive. 3 weeks after the battle at New Darwin, the human fleet had grown substantially. Sleeper cells awakened throughout nearby systems, bringing online hidden shipyards and arsenals that had been preparing in secret for centuries. The alliance with the Nelvari Collective had proven invaluable, their knowledge of current Vorathi deployments filling gaps in humanity's intelligence. Aboard the Prometheus, now serving as the command center for the entire reclamation effort, Ilara studied the galactic map with her expanded war council. Representatives from the Nelvari stood alongside human officers and resistance leaders from various colonies. "The Vorathi are pulling forces from their outer territories," reported Admiral Sado, recently awakened from a cryo facility in the Procyon system. His holographic avatar pointed to movement patterns on the tactical display. "They're consolidating around key strategic points, particularly their core worlds, and the approach vectors to Sol. They're preparing for a protracted conflict," Commander Takeda observed. "They didn't expect us to return with such force." Emissary Talis, the Nelvari representative, nodded in agreement. "The Dominion has grown complacent over centuries of unchallenged rule. Your return has thrown their leadership into disarray. There are already reports of infighting among their high command about how to respond." Ilara zoomed the display to focus on a particular sector. "Then we press our advantage. The Vorathi hold the Epsilon Indi system with a significant military presence. It's a crucial staging area for their fleets and lies directly on our path to Sol." She looked around the table. "I propose we make it our next target." Elena Reyes, the resistance leader from New Darwin who had joined Ilara's council, leaned forward. "Epsilon Indi also contains one of the largest human labor camps in this sector. Over 3 million of our people are held there, working in the Vorathi shipyards." A heavy silence fell over the room. The existence of labor camps had been suspected but not confirmed until the Nelvari shared their intelligence. The thought of millions of humans living in captivity for generations fueled a cold rage in Ilara's chest. "Then our decision is made," she said firmly. "We liberate Epsilon Indi next. Admiral Sato, prepare the fleet. Commander Takeda, I want a special operations team ready for groundside deployment to coordinate with any resistance cells on the surface." The War Council dispersed to prepare for the upcoming operation. As the others filed out, Emissary Talus lingered. "Captain Jensen, there is something of great importance we must discuss privately." Once alone, the Nelvari activated a personal security field that would prevent any eavesdropping. "My scientists have been analyzing the technology you call the Aegis system. Its principles align with certain theoretical work our people abandoned centuries ago, what we termed quantum causality manipulation." Ilara tensed. The Aegis system was humanity's greatest advantage, developed in absolute secrecy. "And what is your interest in our technology, emissary?" "Not concern, Captain. Warning." The alien's eyes swirled with faster patterns, indicating agitation. "Such technology carries risks you may not fully comprehend. The quantum fabric of reality can only bend so far before it breaks." Before Ilara could press for details, Lieutenant Harper's voice came through the comm system. "Captain, we're detecting unusual subspace distortions near the fleet. The readings match nothing in our database." "Show me," Ilara ordered, moving to the bridge, with Talus following close behind. The main viewscreen displayed what appeared to be ripples in the fabric of space itself, spreading outward from points where the Aegis system had been most actively deployed during the battle for New Darwin. "What am I looking at?" Ilara demanded. Talus stepped forward, expression grim. "The beginning of quantum instability. Your Aegis system doesn't just predict enemy actions, it creates microscopic temporal loops, effectively sensing actions before they occur. Each use strains the local space-time continuum." Ilara turned to her science officer. "Is this a threat to our operations?" "Unknown, Captain," the officer replied. "But the distortions appear to be growing slowly. At current rates, they wouldn't present a tactical concern for several months. By which time we plan to have reclaimed Sol," Ilara noted. She turned to Talus. "We thank you for the warning, emissary, but we cannot abandon our most effective weapon. Not when we're so close to our goal." The Nelvari inclined their head. "I understand your position. My people will continue to monitor the distortions. Perhaps together we can find a way to mitigate the effects." 3 days later, the combined human Nelvari fleet arrived at Epsilon Indi. The system was heavily defended, just as intelligence had indicated. A Vorathi battle station in orbit around the second planet, where the labor camps were located, and a defensive line of warships positioned to intercept approaching forces. "They're expecting us," Commander Takeda noted. "Good," Ilara replied. "Commence Operation Thunderbolt." Unlike the straightforward assault at New Darwin, the battle for Epsilon Indi began with subterfuge. 20 Phantom ships, having slipped into the system days earlier, simultaneously disabled key nodes in the Vorathi defense grid. As alarms blared across enemy vessels, the main fleet emerged from FTL, not at the system's edge as expected, but directly in the midst of the Vorathi formation, a maneuver that should have been impossible according to conventional physics. "Quantum translocation successful," reported the navigation officer, referring to another technology humanity had developed during their long exile. The ability to calculate FTL jumps with unprecedented precision, arriving within tactical combat range rather than at safe distances. "All ships, engage at will," Ilara ordered. "Priority targets are their command vessels and anything threatening the labor planet." The battle erupted with ferocious intensity. The Vorathi fought with the desperation of those who recognized they were facing an existential threat. Their weapons were powerful, their tactics honed by centuries of successful conquests. But the human fleet moved with perfect coordination thanks to the Aegis system, each ship seeming to anticipate Vorathi maneuvers before they occurred. The Nelvari vessels added their own distinct capabilities to the fight. Weapons that didn't destroy enemy ships, but rather disabled them by disrupting their power systems, leaving them drifting and harmless. As the space battle raged, dropships protected by stealth fields descended toward the labor planet. Commander Takeda led the ground assault personally, coordinating with resistance elements that had been contacted through secure channels established by the Nelvari. "Captain," Harper called out amidst the chaos of battle. "Incoming transmission from the surface. Commander Takeda has reached the main labor camp." The view screen shifted to show Takeda's helmet camera feed. Around him, thousands of humans were emerging from prefabricated structures, staring in disbelief at their liberators. Many fell to their knees, overcome with emotion. Others surged forward, offering to join the fight immediately. "These people have been maintaining their own resistance network for generations," Takeda reported, his voice thick with emotion. "They've been sabotaging Vorathi operations from within, waiting for the day we would return." Ilara felt a swell of pride and determination. "Tell them their wait is over, Commander. We're bringing them home." As the battle for Epsilon Indi concluded with a decisive human victory, news spread rapidly throughout nearby systems. The Quantum Nexus, a communication network humanity had established during their exile, carried messages of liberation to hidden human enclaves throughout Vorathi space. With each passing day, more resistance cells activated, more hidden resources came online, and more subjugated species began to question Vorathi authority. Within the Dominion itself, panic was spreading. For the first time in centuries, the Vorathi Supreme Council declared a state of emergency. Their military resources, once spread confidently across dozens of systems, were hastily being recalled to defend their core territories and the approach to Sol. Political factions that had long competed for influence now openly blamed each other for failing to completely eradicate humanity when they had the chance. 1 month after the liberation of Epsilon Indi, the human fleet had swelled to over 2,000 vessels. The Prometheus remained at its center, but it was now joined by 8 other supercapital ships, awakened from hidden construction facilities. The alliance with the Nelvari had expanded to include 3 other species, the crystalline Vorex, the gaseous Malurians, and the silicon-based Drath, all former victims of Vorathi expansion, who saw in humanity's return a chance for their own liberation. In her private quarters, Ilara reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The path to Sol was opening before them, Vorathi forces falling back faster than anticipated. Yet the quantum distortions Talus had warned about were also growing, appearing now in systems where the Aegis system had been heavily utilized. A chime announced a visitor, Dr. Elias Cohen, chief scientist of the Reclamation Project and principal architect of the Aegis system. "You've seen the reports?" he asked without preamble. Ilara nodded. "The distortions. Talus says they're a result of our temporal technology." "He's right," Cohen admitted. "The Aegis system doesn't just predict enemy actions, it samples potential futures, creating quantum echoes that reverberate back through time. We always knew there was a theoretical risk of destabilizing local spacetime, but we calculated we would achieve our objectives long before it became problematic." And now, Cohen's expression was troubled. "The effects are accelerating faster than our models predicted. If we continue to use the system at current levels, particularly in concentrated areas like major battles, there's a risk of creating temporal ruptures." "What exactly would that mean?" Ilara asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "Unpredictable consequences. Time flows might become erratic in affected regions. Causality itself could break down." Cohen hesitated. "In the worst case, we could create a cascade effect that spreads beyond our ability to contain it." Ilara was silent for a long moment, contemplating the implications. "Can we modify the system? Reduce its footprint somehow?" "Possibly, but it would take time. Time we don't have if we want to maintain our current offensive momentum." The decision weighed heavily on Ilara. The Aegis system had been crucial to their victories thus far. Without it, they would still have technological superiority over the Vorathi, but their casualty rates would increase substantially. How many more human lives was she willing to risk to avoid a theoretical danger? Work with the Nelvari scientists, she finally ordered. Find a way to minimize the risk. In the meantime, we'll restrict Aegis usage to critical engagements only. As Cohen left, Ilara turned to the viewport, watching the assembled fleet, the largest gathering of human military might since before the fall of Earth. They were so close to their goal. After centuries of preparation, humanity stood on the brink of reclaiming their homeworld. Whatever the risk, she could not falter now. The next target would be Proxima Centauri, the final stepping stone before Sol itself. The future of humanity hung in the balance, and Captain Ilara Jensen carried its weight on her shoulders. The reckoning. The approach to Sol was heralded not by trumpets or ceremonial fanfare, but by the silent, inexorable advance of the largest armada the galaxy had ever witnessed. 5,000 vessels moved in perfect formation, humanity's reclamation fleet at its core, surrounded by the ships of their coalition allies. At the head of this unstoppable force, the Prometheus led the way, its massive silhouette cutting through the void like the shadow of judgment itself. On the bridge, Captain Ilara Jensen stood motionless before the central viewport. After 250 years, she could now see it with her naked eye, the faint yellow star that humans had once simply called the sun. The cradle of their species, the birthplace of their civilization, was just a single jump away. Final reports from all battle groups confirm ready status, Commander Takeda announced, approaching her side. The Nelvari and Vorex fleets are in position. The Phantom squadrons have completed their pre-jump infiltration. Ilara nodded, her expression betraying nothing of the storm of emotions within. And the Aegis status. Dr. Cohen stepped forward from his monitoring station. The system has been recalibrated according to the Nelvari specifications. We've reduced its temporal footprint by 60%. It should minimize further distortions, though the existing ones continue to grow. On a secondary display, the quantum distortions that had followed in their wake were clearly visible, ripples in space-time that had begun to coalesce into larger patterns. In some systems where they had engaged in major battles, the effects were becoming tangible. Communications experienced random delays. Sensor readings showed echoes of events that hadn't yet occurred, and in one particularly affected region, an entire Vorathi patrol had reportedly aged decades in minutes when passing through a severe distortion field. The modifications will reduce our tactical advantage, Takeda noted. Our reaction time will be slowed. A necessary compromise, Ilara replied. We've received enough warnings about the consequences of unchecked usage. We push forward with caution. She turned to face the assembled bridge crew. This is the moment everything has led toward. The Vorathi know we're coming. They've consolidated their forces in Sol, gathering every ship they could recall from their territories. This will be their final stand, and our greatest challenge. The tactical display showed the disposition of enemy forces. 3 massive defense stations positioned at strategic Lagrange points, a fleet of over 6,000 warships arranged in later defensive formations, and planetary defense systems on Earth, Mars, and the larger moons that had been continuously upgraded over centuries of occupation. The Vorathi Supreme Commander has taken personal command of their forces, reported Intelligence Officer Rivera. High Commander Vox Theral hasn't left their throne world in over a century. This signals how seriously they're taking the threat we pose. Good, Ilara said grimly. I want their leadership to witness what happens when you try to exterminate humanity. She turned to the navigation officer. Prepare for system-wide jump. All ships to battle stations. Throughout the massive fleet, final preparations were made. Weapon systems charged to maximum capacity. Shield generators hummed with building energy. In crew compartments, humans and their alien allies readied themselves for what would likely be the most significant battle in galactic history. Captain, Harper called out, incoming transmission from Sol. It's on an old emergency frequency, one dating back to pre-fall Earth. Ilara's head snapped up. Source: It appears to be coming from Luna, Captain. The signal is weak, but definitely of human origin. Put it through. The bridge speakers crackled with static before a voice emerged. Weathered, determined, unmistakably human. To the approaching fleet, if you truly are our people returned, this is General Marcus Chen of the Lunar Resistance. We've maintained watch over Earth for 2.5 centuries. We are still here. We are still fighting, and we are ready to coordinate with your assault. A hushed silence fell over the bridge. The existence of a resistance cell on Luna itself, so close to Earth, right under the Vorathi's main occupation force, was nothing short of miraculous. General Chen, Ilara responded, her voice steady despite her astonishment. This is Captain Ilara Jensen of the Reclamation Fleet. Your timing is impeccable. Stand by for coordination protocols. As the communication officers established secure channels with the Lunar Resistance, Ilara felt a renewed sense of purpose surge through her. Their ancestors had not only scattered across the stars to ensure survival, some had remained behind, enduring generations of occupation, keeping the flame of resistance alive at the very heart of what they sought to reclaim. All ships, she commanded, her voice ringing with quiet authority. Prepare for FTL jump. Primary targets is briefed. The Aegis system will operate at reduced capacity, so maintain tactical awareness and adapt as needed. She paused, then added, Today, we take back our home. The jump countdown commenced. 10 seconds. 5. 1. Reality twisted as 5,000 ships simultaneously tore holes in space-time, vanishing from the edge of Sol system only to reappear moments later throughout its volume, directly amongst the surprised Vorathi formations. The precision of the mass translocation was unprecedented, a testament to centuries of refinement in FTL technology. The battle for Sol erupted with blinding intensity. Particle beams lanced across space. Graviton torpedoes warped the fabric of reality around enemy vessels. Drone swarms clashed in intricate dances of destruction. The reduced efficiency of the Aegis system was immediately apparent. Human ships were taking damage now, something barely seen in previous engagements. But the sheer determination of their forces more than compensated for the tactical adjustment. From Luma, General Chen's resistance fighters initiated long-prepared sabotage protocols, disabling key Vorathi installations across Earth's satellite. Phantom ships materialized within the defense grids of the Lagrangian stations, their elite crews manually overriding command systems and turning the Vorathi's own weapons against them. The Nelvari fleet utilized their unique technology to create null zones where Vorathi sensors and communications simply ceased to function, isolating portions of their formation and creating exploitable gaps in their defensive lines. The crystalline Vorex ships absorbed enemy fire and reflected it back with amplified intensity, while the gaseous Malurians infiltrated Vorathi vessels through their ventilation systems, incapacitating crews without destroying valuable infrastructure. Yet despite everything, the Vorathi fought with desperate ferocity. Their numerical superiority allowed them to absorb horrific losses while still maintaining effective resistance. 3 hours into the battle, the human coalition had secured the outer system, but was still struggling to break through to Earth itself, where the heaviest Vorathi forces were concentrated. On the bridge of the Prometheus, now bearing battle damage for the first time since its awakening, Ilara studied the tactical situation with growing concern. We're losing momentum. Their defensive formations around Earth are holding. Captain, Dr. Cohen interjected urgently, I'm detecting critical changes in the quantum distortion patterns. The concentration of Aegis activity in this system, even at reduced capacity, is accelerating the destabilization effect. The science display showed alarming readings, ripples in space-time converging around the areas of heaviest fighting, creating what appeared to be temporal eddies where cause and effect were beginning to decouple. How long until it reaches critical levels? Ilara demanded. Hours, not days, Cohen replied grimly. And there's something else. He manipulated the display to show a different set of readings. These energy signatures from Earth's surface, they're not Vorathi in origin, but they're interacting with the quantum distortions in ways I can't explain. Commander Takeda leaned in to study the readings. Those look like power signatures matching our own Nexus technology. But that's impossible. We never deployed such systems on Earth. A chilling possibility formed in Ilara's mind. Unless we did, or rather we will. She turned to Cohen. Doctor, could the temporal effects of the Aegis system be creating a two-way street? Not just sensing the future, but allowing elements from it to affect the present. Cohen's expression showed dawning comprehension and alarm. Theoretically possible, yes. If the distortions have grown severe enough, we could be seeing temporal bleed-through, effects manifesting before their causes occur. The implications were staggering. If future versions of their technology were already affecting the present battle, the temporal paradoxes could spiral out of control. Captain, Harper called out. Priority transmission from High Commander Vox Thurl. They're requesting direct communication with our leadership. Ilara hesitated only briefly. Put them through. The main view screen filled with the image of the Vorathi Supreme Commander, a massive reptilian figure adorned with the ceremonial armor of their highest military rank. Unlike the other Vorathi they had encountered, Vox Thurl's scales bore the deep crimson hue of advanced age. I speak to the human who leads this assault. The Vorathi rumbled, their voice translated by the ship's systems. You have fought impressively. Your species has proven more resilient than we anticipated. I am Captain Jensen of the Earth Reclamation Fleet. Ilara responded coldly. If this is a surrender negotiation, we accept nothing less than your complete withdrawal from Sol system and all other human colonies you've occupied. The Vorathi made a sound that might have been laughter. Not surrender, human. Warning. They gestured, and the view widened to show readings similar to those Cohen had been monitoring. Your temporal weapons are creating instabilities that threaten this entire sector. Our scientists detected the anomalies weeks ago. They are approaching critical threshold. Ilara's eyes narrowed. If you're aware of the danger, why continue fighting? Step aside, and let us reclaim our homeworld. The conflict ends, and with it, the use of the technology causing these effects. Because we have seen what happens if you succeed. Vox Thurl replied ominously. Your kind does not stop with reclamation. The temporal echoes show a future where humanity uses this technology to dominate the galaxy far more ruthlessly than the Dominion ever did. We fight not just for our territory, but to prevent a greater tyranny from emerging. Before Ilara could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. Captain, Cohen shouted. Massive power spike from Earth's surface. Something's activating down there. The tactical display showed a blinding flare of energy emanating from what had once been the North American continent. As they watched in astonishment, the energy pattern expanded, forming a network of lines that rapidly encircled the planet. A global version of the quantum nexus technology, but vastly more powerful than anything their current science could produce. That's impossible, Cohen whispered. That's at least a century beyond our current capabilities.